All right, everybody, welcome back. We're excited to have podcast number 3. We're titling this, Different is Amazing, Uncommon is Better. This is the Common Things, Uncommon Ways series that we're discussing here on how to improve in all areas of our life, personally, in relationships, business, goals, finances. All of those things are impacted by doing common things in uncommon ways. So we're very excited to come to you today. I have to make mention, I broke my wrist this week playing Nerf gun wars with a friend's son, and that's uncommon for me to do that. And in this case, uncommon was not better. A common thing in common ways was not better for us moving forward. So a little loopy this week. It's been a tough week and in and out of the ER, doctors, broken wrist. So have some grace with me as we go through this, but I think there's some great things we can learn from today's lesson. So wanted to start with the quest for the uncommon. Again, we all want to be slightly different in our own way, but different is different than uncommon. Uncommon is special and uncommon is unique. So what I thought I'd do today is go through some specific examples of how I've seen or done common things, but in uncommon ways. And I wanted to start with a very impactful experience that I had driving. Now, if you don't know me at all, I can be a very aggressive type A personality. That might be hard for you to believe, but we do have an aggressive personality. And over the years, we tend to see aggression and rage occasionally on the streets. Well, over the years, I've had several experiences where I've come across someone who cut me off or they felt like I cut them off. And there were not often very good results. And in fact, I was very readily available for anyone driving that wanted to have a problem or a race or a shouting match. And unfortunately, especially as I was much younger than I am now. And there was a time about 13 years ago, I had decided to go do some counseling. And in that counseling, I found that I was jumping to conclusions. So the first thing I wanted to share today as a common thing, but doing it in common ways, is how do we jump to conclusions? And how is jumping to conclusions slowing your growth? How is jumping to conclusions retarding your ability to be a better version of yourself? So one of the things that this counselor that I saw was teaching me and showing me, and an assignment they gave me, and I'm going to give to you also, is they presented me with what's called an alternate thought record. So, for example, let's say I have a friend that's going to meet me for lunch. I show up for lunch. The friend doesn't show up. The friend doesn't answer my texts. The friend is late, and I'm sitting there 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, well, maybe this isn't a good friend at all. How dare them for showing me up? And they know how punctual I am. Why would they be here? Your mind tends to go down a certain track in a lot of these instances, right? Now, what the alternate thought record suggests that you do, and I actually took one of these forms with me. We're going to link this on the podcast here so you can have access to it and print it yourself. Again, called the alternate thought record. What it causes you to do is list all of the other potential reasons why that person might not be on time. Gosh, maybe they were in a car crash. Maybe they were having an argument with someone. Maybe their phone ran out of charge and they didn't see what time it was. The idea here is that they're not a bad person, but something else could have happened to them. So as I started examining my life across all of these circumstances, I learned, man, I was jumping to a lot of conclusions. And were those conclusions serving me? No, not really. They were not serving me well at all. So about that time, I had a road rage incident. Now, this wasn't a road rage incident for me. It was for someone else. I was in evening traffic heading somewhere in another city. And as you know, when you're driving, sometimes the traffic will ebb and flow, where it opens up and you go for a little bit and then it tightens back down and you slow down, opens up and slows down. Well, we were in a kind of an open space. I was in the second lane from the right. I'm watching in my rear view mirror and I see this guy come bombing up in the left lane next to me. And as the lanes are contracting or the cars are contracting in front of me and the spaces between us are shortening, I think he's going to try to get over. Well, he pulls up in front of me. He tries to get over and there's not enough space. So immediately he turns to me and he starts telling me that I was number one, but he was using the wrong finger. So he's telling me that I'm number one. I look over at him. He's yelling at me. He's cursing at me. And he assumes that it was intentional, that I had sped up so that he couldn't get in, like many drivers do. Now, interestingly, I hadn't done that. So as he yelled at me, told me I was number one, invited me off the freeway for a conversation, I sat there and I looked at him, and my first thought was the alternate thought record. Why should I be offended at the way this man is acting when I didn't do anything wrong? I didn't intentionally speed up for him not to be able to cut in. So game changer, here comes the uncommon result, the uncommon action. I turned to him sideways while he was telling me I was number one and he was angry. I said to him, my mouth, these words to him, "Are you okay?" The first thing that had gone through my mind was, gosh, maybe he was racing to the hospital. Maybe he had a sick child in the back of his car. Maybe he just got divorced today. Maybe he just lost his job. I was thinking of all these things, and none of them had anything to do with me. So why would I be offended at the way this person was acting? Why would I respond and give away the wonderful day that I'd had to this person's anger and this person's incorrect assumption? And I said to him, literally, I mouthed the words, "Are you okay?" And then I went like this. So I said, "Are you okay?" And I went like this, as if to say, go ahead and pull in front of me. And I started to slow up. He slowed down and looked at me again, and he put his head down. "I'm so sorry." And he waved his hand, pulled in front of me, and we went on our way. And I continued to have an absolutely fantastic day. Now, if you'd have known me in my 20s, for example, that wouldn't have been the result of that experience. And maybe I would have sped up for him not to get in, but that was not my intent that day. So again, in our common things, uncommon ways, we want to examine everything that we do, how we think, how we act, how we treat others, how we run our businesses, how we do all of these things is going to be impactful. It would be common to engage in issues there. It'd be uncommon for me to carry rage home, be uncommon for me to take it, or common for me to take it out of my wife or my family. It'd be common for those things. The uncommon thing is to say, I'm not offended. Why would I be offended? I didn't do anything wrong. And my reaction to him was, "Are you okay?" Had a whole different response to him. I wasn't fighting back. I was, "Yeah, let's get off right now. Let's go. Let's go. Let's see you talk like that to my face." Very, very different result because I was in an uncommon space with how I was going to handle it. So that's, again, what we're trying to accomplish here, what we're trying to see. Let me give you another example. One of the things that I try to do when I communicate is be a different communicator. Our last podcast series was all about things you can do to change and improve your communication. One of the tools we use around here is brutal transparency. And I don't mean brutal as in rude or angry or shocking or difficult, but whatever people tell me, for example, I'm in the ground up construction multifamily space, and it's very common for me to deal with potential capital partners. In other deals, they might be viewed as investors, but in our deals, they're viewed as partners. We invite people with capital on as partners, and they ask me questions. Is this a good deal? No, this is a great deal. Is this a good location? No, it's a fantastic location. Is there a chance I could lose some money here? There's a chance you could lose everything. We take whatever anyone tells us and we take it to the layer past where they're talking. Now, we don't do this intentionally to deceive. We do it intentionally to be brutally honest. And people find satisfaction in that we're willing to tell them the exact truth of anything and everything that can happen in a transaction with us. Now, is it our intent for those negative things to happen? No. Is it a possibility that they could happen? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. But again, the uncommon part about that is to accept your concern and take it to the next level with brutal transparency, brutal honesty. Yes, in fact, the corporate documents that we do discuss very clearly the very positive results that could happen in a transaction and the ones that we're all targeting, but they also discuss some of the negative things that could happen as well. So try that in your speech. Try to take whatever people ask you one layer further for the effect of being someone that's considered honest, direct, and willing to address hard issues. Hey, is there a chance this might not go very well? Hey, yes, man, construction on a building like the one behind me, this is problem management. Construction is problem management. And those problems can be difficult. Absolutely. So is it tough? No, it's problem management. Take it to the next level. And again, it's uncommon to be fully transparent. And while I'm describing it to you today as taking it to the next level or past what might be real, what I really mean is be 100% transparent in everything you discuss and talk about. And people will love you for that. They'll want to work with you for that. They crave communication like that. So that's a fantastic thing. Now, one of the things you'll notice this picture behind me, I'm very excited about it. We have a 40 by 60 inch canvas here with one of the buildings that we're building right now. We've had some amazing problems, unbelievable problems with a prior builder. We ended up having to get rid of them, fire them, terminate them from our contractual agreement, and now we're litigating against them for some terrible things that they did. And it underscores the many problems that I've had with builders over the last 30 years. Now, this isn't going to be an attack on builders or subcontractors or third-party suppliers and people we work with like architects, engineers, those types of firms, subcontractors. But this is a human problem that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to tell you how we used it to make a difference in an uncommon way to grow our business pretty exponentially, by the way. So I came up with a list years ago. I used to represent a lot of builders in real estate transactions. I was a real estate agent and broker for 14 years. And one of my bread and butter things was representing builders selling brand new homes. Well, as I represented a lot of builders over lots and lots of homes, I started seeing that obviously no builder's perfect. No one's perfect. But builders had 5 main issues that they would go through on a regular basis. And I want to share with you what they are. Again, not to denigrate builders or subcontractors, because I think many people's businesses are described by these issues. And I want you to learn these, and I hope you'll take notes on these. So the first thing that I'll say about builders when I interview them, and this would happen 2 ways. I would have, as an agent, I'd list a builder's subdivision. I'd be selling the units, and they'd come in and I'd say, hey, look, here's the issues that you're going to find with builders. Buyers know this. This is common, especially for buyers that have been around the block a little bit. I would say there's 5 problems that I've seen with builders, and let me tell you how our builder performs, and let me tell you what I'm going to do as your agent to help the builder perform in the areas where they may or may not be deficient. And it was very, I wouldn't say unsettling, but very calming and soothing for a new buyer to show up, and they're going to have someone greet them with, we have an excellent property and an excellent builder and an excellent home and price point, but there's issues with all people and therefore all builders. And here's what I'm going to do about it for your agent, as your agent, and here's how I'm going to help you have a better experience. Very, very different experience for people. So the first thing I would tell them is not every builder does amazing work. Some of the work that you see out there for builders is substandard, just very poor work. And sometimes they'll hire subcontractors. They might have, most of their subcontractors are fantastic and they've worked with for a long time, but once in a while a builder has to bring in a new sub on a subdivision. They don't have a relationship, and there can be substandard work there. So not every builder provides excellent work. The second thing is builders have a really hard time, as in anyone does in any field, finishing on time. Third, builders are terrible communicators. You find out about problems later, or you find about them way later. You might find about a cost change on your project way after a decision has been made, and decisions have been made without written permission for those changes to be made, with those costs to be added. So very difficult for communication in builders. The next one, number 4, builders often don't come in on budget. They show up with an announcement, hey, guess what? The house costs more. Can you imagine showing up to a closing with a builder and your price is X? And they say, yeah, it's X, but here's $20, $30, $40, $50,000 more that we didn't tell you about. And they don't say that, but they expect you to pay it at the closing table after you've already got your loan, after you've already got things determined, and there's this extra bill that nobody knew about. So not only do builders not finish on budget, when you combine that with they don't communicate well, it can cause for a lot of issues. And I've seen a lot of those things happen over the years. And as a part of that, not only do they not finish on budget, they don't even know they're on budget. They're not on budget. And so they don't find out until the closing table, which they come in and drop a bomb on you. Very, very difficult. Next one, number 5. This was one which was hard for me because as a realtor, I was involved in this. A lot of builders don't honor their warranty work. You move in, 3 months in, the nails in the sheetrock start dropping down and they pop down, or there's cracks in the wall, or things come up and it should be covered by a typical builder's 1 or 2 year warranty, and they don't respond. They don't get back to you. They don't send people out to do work. And you get very, very frustrated that you've paid this for this house and they're not doing warranty work. So those 5 things are standard things. Now I added a number 6, kind of as a joke. Number 6, builders aren't good communicators. And I say that again because communication is the backbone for all of these things going well and working well for us, right? So I would literally bring people in, sell them this amazing home with a great price, with a wonderful floor plan in a great location, and I'd suffer, literally suffer, as my builders did one or most of these things. And I came to find out of these 5 tongue-in-cheek 6 things on this list, most builders just didn't perform on 3 of them. I was happy if I could get a builder that would do 3 of these 5 issues. So I became so frustrated with this, I decided, hey, I'm going to go get my own building license. Why am I going to sit here and take a beating to my reputation that I'm representing builders on and they don't do their job? So I'm the go-between in the client, and in what we do now, our company here, Sumatera Ventures, is the managing partner for big projects like the one behind me, and much bigger ones and some smaller ones too across 5 states here in the United States. I'm the go-between typically between the builder, my offices, and our partners. So everything that builder represents to me, I'm now representing to other people, and I feel like, gosh, I'm on the hook. So long story short, my brother and I decided to start a building company. This was many years ago. We called it Watson Brothers Construction. And our goal was to build homes on properties that we entitled, or lots that we bought in bulk for a discount, or remnant lots that others couldn't sell on. We had unique floor plans and homes that we could build for people. And we talked about how we want to represent ourselves out in the public. Well, our first slogan, you'll like this, we're entry-level builders. We didn't like to do the big, expensive custom stuff. We love entry-level marketing. Our first real slogan was quality at a better price. So we felt like we can build a great home for a very good price, and it's a great starter home or second home for someone, for example, who's coming out of a condominium. But that wasn't the slogan. So you drive by our sign and you'd see Watson Brothers Construction on a location, and we'd have 7 lots available, quality at a better price. And they'd call and say, hey, I'm interested in calling about these lots. And we're thinking we might want to build a home over here. And we had a tongue-in-cheek slogan, and we'd say, yeah, we're Watson Brothers Construction, and we could build your home at least as bad as the next guy. Yeah, this is Watson Brothers Construction. We can build your home at least as poorly as the next builder. Yeah, we're aware of the building problems out there, and we're going to do at least as poor of a job as you've come to expect. And we'd pause for effect. And people would say, well, that doesn't sound very good. And then we'd kind of chuckle and say, yeah, there's a real problem in the building industry. Perhaps you've heard. And they'd say, yes, there have been. I'd say, listen, our real slogan is quality at a better price, but I'd like to meet with you and tell you why we say as a slogan, we could build your home at least as bad as the next guy. So we'd show up with clients as a brand new builder, and we'd go through this list of 5 things that builders do wrong. And a number of the clients were quite savvy, or if we had a first-time home buyer, oftentimes they'd bring their parents, and their parents were in the background going, yeah, you remember so-and-so that built our house over there 10 years ago? Yeah, he did number 1, 3, and 5. Oh, man, I wish I'd have known these guys then. And so the ability for us to be somewhat negative up front caused a transparency and an interest level. Man, these guys are different. Man, you know what? Here's the word I'm looking for. Ready for it? These guys are uncommon in how they market. They're uncommon in how they communicate. They're uncommon in how direct and bold they are about problems in an industry. And in fact, on top of that, they have a bulleted plan on how they're going to overcome these issues, and a warranty they're giving us in advance that addresses these. And here's going to be their response if they get out of bounds on one of these issues. Now, did we build perfect homes? No, we were a brand new builder. I mean, I went from being a realtor, and I was still a realtor, to being a builder. And very, very fantastic for us, because we'd go find a piece of ground. We'd spend time entitling it or getting it prepped for building. We'd get the construction drawings done, then we'd build it. So we'd make a raw ground profit. We'd make an entitlement profit. We'd make a development profit. Then we'd make a building profit. And then we got the commissions on top of it. So we had a lot of different layers of success. But it was interesting to me how quickly we grew and how much interest there was, because we were negatively transparent. And again, I don't mean negative for the sake of being negative. I mean negative for the sake of grabbing people's attention. Who would say that to you? Yeah, hey, this is Mike Watson with Watson Brothers Construction. We can build your home at least as bad as the next guy. And people would joke with that through the construction process. And once in a while, someone would come and say, hey, Mike, remember we talked about this closet being a little bit different. You're going to be the guy that could build it at least as bad as the next guy. And I'd say, no, I'm not. I'm going to fix that. Come back on Tuesday and I'll have the framer have that fixed for you. No problem at all. And we joke, and it became a talking point, right? But it raised our level of our game, and it made an endearing statement to people. And we had some wonderful, wonderful relationships that way. So think about being brutally transparent, being uncommonly open, and even being negative to the extent of attention grabbing. We can build your home at least as bad as the next guy. We still have friends today. And I only did that for 4 years. I didn't quite enjoy being a builder, although it was a lucrative opportunity for us to do that. We didn't do that for long because it was a different skill set. That was not something that we enjoyed. So interesting that way. Now, back to the alternative thought record. If you can adopt this as a mindset, this is a foundation, I believe, for being uncommon. It's easy for us to let our minds get taken away. And if there's anywhere you want to go to see how far people go on judgment without reason, judgment without understanding, judgment without intelligence, just hop on social media for a minute. On almost any post, you can find one extreme to the next. You can post on almost anything, and somebody will be one extreme one direction and one extreme another direction. You can see someone post a little video of their 2-year-old daughter playing with their dog, and you got the guy in the middle saying how beautiful, I love pets, they love us better, more than we love them. The next guy is saying, that's terrible, that's a terrible parent, that dog could lose their mind and maul that child, and you would never forgive yourself. And the other extreme is, dogs are better at loving things and people than humans are. Dogs are better, we don't deserve them. And it's interesting that which one of those is true? Which one of those comments is true? So open your mind to the potential of being uncommon with your alternate thought record. I'd like to really challenge you to look at that and take that as a companion. You know, in podcast number 2, we talked a lot about following through with your communication and recording and listening, sending emails and dropping them into ChatGPT and seeing what the changes were, and adopting the change from the email that you wrote to the one that ChatGPT produced for you on top of that. So another example of being uncommon, common things in a common way. We have partnership meetings here about once every 4, 5, 6 weeks for each of these projects. So you see a project like this, we've got a project-specific LLC, which again, every business is different, but in our case, we want our partners to participate and have a say in everything that we do. So we have these meetings. Well, once in a while, they can get a little difficult. There's hard things in the real estate market. It's an up and down market. We're dealing with builders. We're dealing with banks. We're dealing with millions of dollars. And sometimes people get a little stressed. Well, out of about 100 plus partners that we have that are either individual partners to transactions or in groups of LLCs and family members and things to transactions, we probably have north of 100 partners in the aggregate. Once in a while, a partner gets sideways. They'll get upset, they'll swear, they'll lose their patience, they'll attack who's in charge, which is generally me. So I'm sitting here. Can you imagine being on a Zoom call with 20 partners and one of them goes sideways and gets upset and loses their cool, and they might even start swearing and having issues? And I'll tell you what, ever since I had that issue in the car where someone really wanted to have a problem with me, that first example we talked about, I've tried my best to have that thought record. Hey, maybe they don't understand. This person's losing their mind or getting upset or being rude or unprofessional or ugly. Be very easy for me to respond because I'm the one that has the vast majority of information. Most of these guys are misguided. Most of them don't know the market. Most of them haven't done partner duties as we request of them. Most of them have not helped, and they're judging things based on things they don't know. Hey, listen, whoever's in the White House, if interest rates go up 2 or 3 or 4% over a 2, 3 year, 2, 3, 4 year period, it's going to devastate a real estate market. If there's an oversupply of apartments, and we've kind of seen that in some of the markets across the country, then it's going to be a little slower to lease up the apartments that we have. So attacking and being upset and difficult isn't going to help improve anything, and it's certainly not going to build camaraderie and teamwork in our partnership. But here's the thing. As the host of those calls, I have a couple of options here. I can really fire back and say, listen, man, if you'd pick up a shovel and help, if you'd come to the site more often or even at all, if you'd read the reports that we send out to you, if you'd prepare for these meetings, if you'd call in advance and just ask a couple of simple questions, you wouldn't look like a jackwagon like you just look like. Now, that's me engaging in that kind of behavior. What I've tried to do in these meetings is adopt a much different approach, which, again, if you knew me personally, some of this is a Herculean event because I am an excitable guy. I have a strong, outgoing, kind of a type A personality, and I don't like people that abuse and call names and swear and take over meetings. It just shows a real lack of class and professionalism, but it does happen. Now, as that's happened once or twice, it's not common at all in our meetings, but as it happens, I take a deep breath and I say to myself, okay, what's going on? I'm listening. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing reactions from partners. What's going on with this person? I'm listening. What don't they know? What's the missing information that they have? Is there something else going on in their life? Should I take this personally, even though it's quite honestly and often directed personally at me? Did I personally change the interest rates? No. Did I personally oversee the overbuilding in 1 or 2 of the markets that we're in? Absolutely not. Did I personally cause a builder to do one of these issues for us and have major problems in our project? No, I did not. I did not personally do those things. So personally, why would I be offended? And I have tried to answer with class and calmness every one of those calls and those issues in our Zoom meetings. And in fact, someone gets a little sideways. I wait till they're finished. I let there be a pause. There's a real thought in amongst the partners. You can see it right on our Zoom calls. And my first thing I'm try to do is, Bob, thank you for your comments. I appreciate you expressing your opinion. While I don't necessarily agree with all the things that you said, I understand you're frustrated. We're all frustrated for the same reasons that you are. Let me fill you in on a few of the issues that I think you might want some more or additional information on. And in fact, we sent out a report or a preparatory email or in tonight's presentation, and we'll take a very factual, very thought-based, very pensive response to a very difficult situation. I can't tell you, I don't do this for the following reason, but I can't tell you how enduring this has been to other partners. I can't tell you how many texts I get and phone calls and emails afterwards where people say, Mike, you handled that with such class and professionalism. You didn't blow up. You didn't get defensive. And listen, if a guy's mad because our units didn't lease out in a particular city as fast as we'd hoped, and there was a financial consequence for that because we have to pay a mortgage, hey, I get it. I understand that. I am frustrated about it too. I'm frustrated as you are about anything that's bad that happens in our partnership as much as you are. My wife has ownership in some of these assets as well, and we typically have a larger ownership position than other members because of the money that we put in and all the work that we do. So whatever is affecting that particular partner is greatly affecting us too. So it's easy for me to say, I understand your frustration. We're dealing with it on our level too. But that's uncommon. It's uncommon. Why would I be offended if I didn't intentionally do anything wrong? And occasionally I've had to say, hey, you know what? We dropped the ball on this issue, and here's what I'm going to do to make it right. And I'll tell you what, when someone yells at you and you look at them and say, I'm sorry, we dropped the ball on that. Here's what I'm going to do to make it right. It's very unsettling. It's very uncommon. So again, you come back to communication, you come back to transparency, you come back to being different. What's the DNA that you have? Is your DNA to be a brawler? Is your DNA to be someone that lies and hides and conceals, and I got to go find problems out some other way? Was your DNA to be open, respectful, honest? I'll tell you what, that builds bridges and that builds true relationships over time. So very interesting thing there. Another thing I want to give you as an example. I was in a meeting with my office recently, and someone was trying to get a hold of me, and they said, "Hey, Mike, this person's trying to get a hold of you." And I realized, oh my gosh, these guys were trying to get a hold of me. And I said, "What's their number?" And I looked, and their phone number was blocked. And I said, "Man, I got to unblock that phone number." And my office, I said this in front of my office staff in an office meeting. My office, one of the guys kind of laughed. And he goes, "Well, Mike, just go in and unblock it." And I go, "It's not that easy." And he goes, "Why is that?" I said, "I have 600 blocked phone numbers." Let me say that again. I have about 600 blocked phone numbers on my phone. And he goes, "Man, I can't even imagine why you have 600 blocked phone numbers." And here he goes down judgment path. Here he goes down, "Hey, there's Mike, gosh, maybe Mike's more of a brawler than I thought. Hey, I can't believe Mike's not in his office yelling at people all day long and then hanging up and blocking their phone numbers." And I turned to him and I said, very kindly, and to the group, hey guys, why do I have 600 blocked phone numbers? Why would I do that? Why would I have 600 blocked phone numbers? Well, when you're me and you're the CEO of a prominent multifamily and mixed-use ground-up construction building companies, there's all kinds of spam calls that I get. There's all kinds of subcontractors that call me constantly. Do you know how many landscapers call me a month? Do you know how many sheetrockers call me a month? And they don't leave messages. They just keep calling and calling and calling and calling. And so I see these numbers come over and over and over again. And if someone doesn't have the professionalism of sending me a text or an email, their number gets blocked. I don't have time to deal with these numbers all day long and see numbers come all day long. And I literally, if I see a number 3 or 4 or 5 times over a 3 or 4 day period, and they don't leave a voicemail or a text, they get blocked. It's that simple. I don't have time in my space. It's not a good thing. And this is where it's uncommon. It's not a good thing for you to constantly be interrupted. You know what it'd be like if I was on this podcast right here and every 20, 30, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, I was doing this? Yeah, what were you saying? And I tell you, that's not the way I'm going to communicate with people, and that's not the way I'm going to engage in appointments with people. So in fact, I actually changed my voicemail to something that's very uncommon, and I've gotten a lot of responses on positively for, 1 or 2 negatives too. It actually says on my voicemail something to the sense of, if you call me, I say, hey, if I don't recognize your number, let's start over again. If you call me, my voicemail says, hang up the phone and send me a text or an email. I do not answer phone numbers that I do not recognize. Have a great day. Click. And then the option to leave a voicemail is not there. Guys, it's common to follow voicemails and to listen and sit there. Can you imagine the volume of calls that I get listening to voicemails all day? Not going to happen. But texts, I can very quickly go through. And what I'm doing back in the communication realm from podcast number 2, that's uncommon, is I'm telling everyone that calls me again and again repeatedly, everyone that does that, I'm going to communicate with this guy differently. This guy has a different expectation. This guy has boundaries in the way he communicates. This guy has boundaries in the way he's accessible. This guy's not accessible to everyone. And the way I describe it is, Ben, you need to have some new standards on how your phone works. And I'm not going to be somebody that sits there all day long, and I can text very, very quickly, can text someone a response much, much faster than I can listen to a voicemail and then send a text back to them or listen to a voicemail. So this is a time thing for me. And it's very uncommon to handle it that way. There are standards. And if you're going to repeatedly call me and not leave a voicemail or send an email, you get blocked. And I can't tell you how many times I'll meet someone on a job site or someone that's interested, and I'll meet them at an event. We do quite a few trainings and events. Someone comes up to me and said, Mike, I've been trying to get a hold of you. And it seems like my number's blocked. And I said, I'll say, have you ever left me a voicemail or sent me a text? No. Well, yeah, I can guarantee you your number's blocked. What? You blocked my number? I said, yeah, man, I tell you what, try this. Set a standard for how people can get a hold of you, and people will respond to that standard. My standard is I don't have time to sit there and answer calls all day. I'm on Zoom calls and podcasts and in meetings and meeting with cities and on job sites and walking with partners. The last thing I'm going to do is answer phone calls or voicemails all day. So tell me what your number is, and I'll go in and unblock it and start sending me a text. And in fact, I'll stand in front of a room. We had a 2-day seminar recently where there was 140 plus attendees from 5 states that wanted to come in and hear about our ground up construction and multifamily business plan and the DNA of being uncommon, the DNA that works in every business of being uncommon. I announced from stage, who'd like my cell phone number? And invariably, every number every hand in the room goes up. I want to get that guy's phone number. Well, it's uncommon for someone, a CEO of a prominent multifamily. Most guys guard their phone numbers with their lives. They guard their phone numbers with, gosh, I don't want more calls. I don't want more information. I don't want any of these things. Well, I say, here's my phone number, but let me tell you what happens. If you call me, you'll get blocked. If you call me, don't call me. Do not call me. Raise your hand if you understand what don't call me means. And they raise their hand and they're thinking, why did this guy just give me his number? And I say, text me. Say, hey, Mike, I need to talk about A, B, and C. When can we hop on a call? And here's the thing for me. Gosh, that's a standard. I can open up a text. It's Bob. Bob wants to talk about A, B, and C. And if I'm interested in talking to Bob, I'll respond to Bob. And if I'm not interested in talking to Bob, I take a screenshot and text it to whomever that would correspond to in my office. And they talk to Bob. And Bob learns that sending Mike a text gets a very, very fast response. So I have been uncommon in the way I want people to communicate with me. It's not uncommon for me to do between 100 to 150 to 200 texts, emails, and phone calls a day. And that would devour anyone's day. So it's common to do phone calls and emails and texts. It's uncommon to say, I don't do voicemails. Voicemails are debilitating. I don't answer phone calls for numbers I don't recognize. Don't get your feelings hurt. Hang up and send me a text. Hey, this is Bob from, and tell me where you're at. And that goes back to communication. Don't call, hey, is this Mike? Question mark. Do you know how many texts I get that start that way? That's uncommon in a bad way. So, or actually, I should say common in a bad way. So the last thing I'm going to do in ending today's podcast is to say, again, the quest for this podcast and the clarifying comment we have for today, different is amazing, uncommon is better. Different is amazing, uncommon is better. And I gave you some specific examples, not because necessarily you needed that particular example. I think you'll find value in the things that I shared. More important today was, can you think differently? And then in thinking differently, can you have an uncommon manifestation of that thought? Can you be uncommon? Hey, everybody sees road rage on the freeway. Differently is, I'm just going to ignore them. And you've seen that before, where you've gotten upset at someone or you've watched someone get upset at the person in the car in front of you. And this guy's over here yelling and screaming. And this lady's over here acting like nothing happened. Okay, so uncommon is not responding. That's fairly more common than uncommon. But what's uncommon is to engage an angry person and say, are you okay? And to go like this and say, hey, go ahead and get in. And that changes that person's moment, their psyche, their psychology, and it changes you too. Listen, I don't have to respond in a certain way. And if you're around people enough, especially if you're in sales or running companies or in personnel and all of those things, that stuff goes a long, long ways. So again, different is amazing. Uncommon is better. How can we do common things in uncommon ways? Think about it, put it into practice, bleed it through your entire life. You'll have some amazing results. Now, last statement I want to say that's uncommon is risk levels. It's not common for people to want to be highly risky. Some of us, like me, I tell people everywhere I go, I deal in risk. Everywhere I go, I deal in risk. I want to tell you a quick story. I knew a man back in the early 90s, and I knew him in a different place. He and I served in an organization together many, many years ago. And fast forward about 15 years, this would have been about 15 years ago, I was in a bank getting a bank loan, and I went in to meet with what's called a private banker. This is where if you do enough business and you have enough accounts and enough net worth and money that's going back and forth between your accounts, your average daily balances are high enough, what a bank will often assign you is what's called a private banker, where you don't go in and deal with a teller and stand in a line. You have someone in the back of the bank or on the second floor or wherever, and you call them ahead and say, here's what I need to do. And they handle it for you. So you have your own banker in a sense. So I was just getting into private banking. I wanted to get a very unique and special kind of loan for some real estate deals I was doing. I went in with this great presentation, went in and met with a person. They were going to assign me my first private banker. I'm going through my business plan and I keep looking at this guy, and in my head, I'm thinking, I know this guy from somewhere. And pretty soon I remember where he is, and I go, hey, didn't you and I serve together 10 or 12, 15 years ago in this place, in this organization? I said, you and I, we didn't directly work with each other, but you look familiar to me. He goes, yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah. He goes, Mike, I'll tell you what, it's been 12 or 13 years. And oh my gosh, he was looking at my financials and my asset statements and my tax returns and my net worth and bank accounts. And he was in a much different place, right? Working at a bank. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just a different place. And I said, how have you been? I said, how'd you get such a cool job? And it kind of took him back. And he goes, what do you mean cool job? And he didn't know how I meant that. And I said, well, you must have the coolest job in the world. He goes, do you deal with guys like me all day long? And he goes, yeah, that's what I do. And I go, well, that's got to be the coolest job in the world. And again, he wasn't quite sure where I was going with that. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, so you get to sit here all day and you get to look at portfolios like this and packages and business idea submissions and loan requests, and you get to talk with guys like me all day long? And he goes, yeah, that's what I do. I go, man, coolest job in the world. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, man, if I'm you, I'm a lion poised to strike. He goes, Mike, I'm not following you. I said, if I were you, I'd be taking notes. I get to see these blueprints to success all day long. And then I said to him, and he starts thinking, yeah, this is a pretty cool job. And I said, how'd you get this job? And he goes, well, I was working as a teller and I did well, and I was a teller manager and I just kind of moved up, and now I'm here. And he didn't appreciate how cool of a job this was, to see high-level financials on a daily basis and to consider and interact with guys that are out there eating what we kill, taking high levels of risk. And this just wasn't him. And I said to him, can I ask you a question? I don't want you to get offended. And he said, sure. I said, how do you sit there? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you get to see this stuff day after day. How do you not give a 2-week notice to go out and conquer your dreams and go after this, man? You see the results of this every single day. You're in the thick of it, man. How do you sit there? And here's the thing. It's very common for us to see successful people around us. It's what's uncommon is to, first of all, determine what the outliers were. This guy, every person that sat in front of this guy and made applications and loans and equity lines and opened different types of accounts was uncommon, was an outlier, right? You have the vast majority of society that fits in a couple of financial boxes or layers. And then you have guys that go out and do successful things and they find their way into private banking in a bank. These are outliers. He deals with outliers every day. And I didn't know how to express it then, but I said, man, it must be really cool to see all of the very unique things that these businesses are doing. Meaning, it's common to run a business. It's less common to be super successful. So you have your trends of how businesses are run. You have your outliers for the successful guys. And then the meat for me is, what are the outliers doing that's uncommon? The common things that a business would do, but in the uncommon ways. And these are in the business submissions. These are in the lending requests. These are in the DNA of how people talk to you, how they come in dressed. Everything about outliers suggests there's uncommon things here, not common grounds. We didn't all go to Harvard or MIT. Gosh, I went to BYU, right? Not everybody grew up in the right place or had a 2-parent home or had a happy upbringing or went to the right high school or scored unbelievable grades. But that didn't mean we couldn't be outliers. That didn't mean there was an uncommonality. So I said to him, how do you sit there? And his posture changed. He went, like, oh my gosh, Mike just dealt me a blow, right? And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I go, well, I think after a while, this desk in this little office would start to look and feel like a cage. Feel like a cage to me, man. How do you sit there? How do you not just sit there and do you take notes at the end of every day on ideas that you have and ways you're going to flesh them out and start building business plans? Tell me what you're working on, man. Let's talk it through. And none of this had even crossed his mind that he's sitting in this unbelievable fertile ground. And this is the response that he gets. This is the response in his brain that this is. So I said to him, how do you sit there? How do you not go out and conquer your dreams? Man, what an education you've gotten. Unbelievable job, man. Best job in the world. And he said something that forever changed me. And I want to end with this today. He said this, I don't have any risk capital. What did you just say? He goes, yeah, I don't have any risk capital. I make enough to take care of my life. And there's no risk capital for me to say after my life is taken care of, here's money that I'm willing to risk and I could lose it. There's no risk capital. And what he was saying is not that he has no risk capital. He was saying, hey, I'm living on everything that I make, which most of us do. In fact, most of us live on a little more than we make, which is why some of us produce personal debt. And he said, so you have no risk capital. And he said, yes. And we had my documents and my asset statements and net worth and tax returns spread out. And I put my hand down and I said, can I teach you something, brother, that I've learned? And he goes, yes. I go, it's all risk capital. It's all risk capital. And I came up with a saying that I want to share with you to consider in being uncommon. He or she who is unwilling to risk everything that they have is willing to risk everything that they can become. I'm going to say that a second time for effect. He or she that is not willing to risk everything that they have, are willing to risk everything that they can become. There is so much joy and growth and positivity on the other side of risk, on the other side of stretching, on the other side of being different. So one of the things I wanted to share with you on this third podcast here is risk. Now, am I saying go risk everything you have and make dumb decisions? No. There's a big difference between a calculated risk with everything that you have, a very calculated risk at everything you have, a very calculated and reviewed risk with partners of everything you have. There's different layers on risk. And I'm not suggesting you risk everything you have. And I'm not suggesting that you should oftentimes do that or ever do that. But the mindset is nothing that I have matters. What I'm becoming is what's the most important thing of all. And that's where the risk comes in. And if I don't stretch and grow and have that opportunity for that curve, anything that I have doesn't matter. It's been kind of funny. People have been joking that this arm has been broken. So I'm just going to be working on cardio at the gym, and heavens knows I need some cardio, right? But I keep telling people, man, I can't lift weights with this arm, but this right arm's going to get huge. I'm going to have one huge arm and one small arm. That's just because my arm's hurt doesn't mean I can't work out and do a lot of things with my other arm. So guys, consider risking. Have you been willing to risk what you need? Risk time, risk a failed or poor communications. Have you been willing to risk controlling your emotions in a better way? Have you been willing to risk all the things we talked about today? So give that some consideration. We'll catch you on our next episode. Talk to you soon.